A nation drilled for disaster, a radar grid built after tragedy. Yet in 2025, winds of 185 kilometers per hour and a monstrous 1,400 kilometers wide storm forced over 1 million families out overnight. Scientists insist Typhoon Fung Wong should have been impossible. So what did they miss, and why did the system begin to crack the moment it mattered most? At 2:43 a.m., the first confirmed landfall struck Aurora province. Sirens wailed through Baylor as the government's highest alert, signal number 5, flashed across every emergency channel. In a matter of hours, evacuation orders swept through Luzon's eastern coast, pushing families from their homes into schools, gymnasiums, and any shelter with reinforced walls. Buses and military trucks jammed the highways out of Casiguran and Dingalan. In the rain-soaked dark, parents carried sleeping children, clutching plastic bags of clothes and documents. By sunrise, more than 1 million people had left behind entire neighborhoods. Official numbers from the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council put the displaced at over 1.4 million, the largest movement since Typhoon Haiyan. The storm's core battered Aurora with 185 kilometers per hour sustained winds, flattening coconut groves and sending sheet metal spinning through flooded streets. Emergency shelters filled past capacity. Volunteers struggled to keep track of arrivals as more families poured in, some on foot, some by motorcycle, all soaked and shivering. Early casualty reports trickled in, at least 8 dead, dozens more injured by flying debris or collapsed roofs. For many, there was no time to process what they'd lost. The only focus was survival. Every hour brought new arrivals to crowded shelters, while outside, the storm kept growing. The sheer scale of movement, the speed of the warnings, and the raw force of the typhoon left officials and families alike facing a single question. Could the systems built after past disasters handle a storm of this size? Every typhoon season, the Philippines braces for impact. 20 to 25 storms sweep across the archipelago each year, shaping everything from school calendars to city budgets. After the devastation of Haiyan in 2013, the nation poured billions into new Doppler radar stations, coastal gauges, and backup power systems. Disaster manuals promised redundancy. If one sensor failed, another would fill the gap. By 2025, officials pointed to this grid as proof the country could never again be caught off guard. But as Fung Wong's eye wall closed in on Aurora, the system faltered at its most critical point. At 2:18 in the morning, the Casiguran Doppler radar, one of the cornerstones of the post-Haiyan upgrade, suffered a sudden power surge. Backup generators kicked in, only to be drowned by rising floodwater minutes later. By 3:07 in the morning, the entire site had gone dark, leaving a blind spot in the heart of the storm's path. Network switches failed to reroute data, and real-time weather feeds from the coast fell silent. Maintenance logs later revealed that scheduled repairs had been delayed for months, flagged in memos but never funded. With no radar coverage and winds still rising, local leaders faced impossible choices. In Baylor, Mayor Lea Domingo issued a single, unambiguous order: no rescues once the winds begin. Her voice cut through the static on the emergency radio, drawing a hard line shaped by memories of past disasters. For responders, it meant waiting out the storm, knowing that every call for help after that moment would go unanswered until the winds eased. The promise of a fail-safe system had collided with the reality of cascading technical collapse. Wind instruments along the eastern seaboard began recording numbers that defied expectations. Aurora's coastal gauges, positioned to catch the brunt of the storm, registered a tidal surge climbing past 4 meters, nearly a full meter above the highest forecast. Rain bands stretched across Luzon and out to sea, a reach confirmed by satellite overlays showing Fung Wong's diameter at nearly 1,400 kilometers. That is a footprint covering 2/3 of the Philippines, rivaled in modern history only by the legendary Typhoon Tip of 1979. Yet it was the eyewall's behavior that left meteorologists searching for answers. Typically, a typhoon's core unravels after hitting land, especially when crossing the mountains of Luzon. But radar logs, briefly restored between outages, captured a stable, concentric ring of reflectivity, persisting for hours even as the storm churned over rugged terrain. Microwave satellite passes confirmed what ground teams suspected. The inner engine of Fung Wong refused to collapse. Instead, it maintained symmetry and intensity, drawing energy from an ocean heat pool that had barely cooled since the last major storm. Comparative cyclone studies show that only a handful of storms in recorded history have displayed such resilience. Model hindcasts run after the fact suggest that without the record-breaking ocean temperatures and suppressed wind shear, the storm should have weakened rapidly. Instead, the data now pointed to a system that broke the rules. Surge higher than predicted, a core that held together over land, and a size that forced scientists to question the limits of what a typhoon can become. On the open water east of Aurora, the San Lorenzo fishing crew fought for their lives as the storm erased every trace of the familiar coastline. Power and cell service vanished in hours, leaving the boat and its 6 crew members cut off from any outside help. Inside the cabin, the captain's voice cracked over a battery-powered radio, calling out Mayday into static. Waves hammered the hull, flooding the lower deck. Crew members bailed with plastic buckets, their soaked clothes clinging in the dark, while phone cameras captured the chaos, water sloshing at their knees, prayers rising above the roar. The Coast Guard, already stretched thin, scrambled a cutter as soon as the last known position flickered onto their screen, a single, intermittent AIS ping, gone as quickly as it appeared. With no radar and no way to reach the crew, the rescue team relied on dead reckoning and the faint hope of a GPS fix. The blackout on shore meant there was no guidance from command, no updated coordinates, only the memory of a distress call and the rhythm of the sea. After hours searching blind, a red flare pierced the rain. The cutter found the San Lorenzo nearly adrift, battered but upright. In the aftermath, Coast Guard logs described the rescue as a product of persistence and luck, navigating by instinct in brief bursts of satellite signal. The crew's phone footage, later shared from a shelter, showed faces streaked with salt and tears, hands shaking as they recounted the moment the searchlight swept over their sinking deck. For those 18 hours, technology had failed. Survival came down to human determination and a few fleeting signals in the dark. International forecasters at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center watched the same satellite loops and radar gaps as their counterparts in Manila, but their briefings struck a more cautious note. Analysts pointed out that while Fung Wong's size and persistence were extraordinary, storms of this magnitude have appeared before, albeit rare. NOAA meteorologists described the event as a rare convergence of known factors. Record sea surface temperatures, high moisture, and weak wind shear all lining up at once. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center's official statement called it an outlier, not a new category of cyclone. Extreme but not impossible, one forecaster said. They cautioned against declaring a new era based on a single event, reminding colleagues that the Pacific has delivered surprises before. Debate continued over whether this storm fit within extreme historical bounds, or signaled something fundamentally different. For now, the science remained a conversation, one shaped as much by humility as by alarm. Emergency call logs filled with overlapping voices, meteorologists, disaster managers, military coordinators, all staring at ensemble variance graphs that refused to agree. PAGASA's own bulletin warned of a storm diameter anywhere from 1,200 to 1,800 kilometers, while the Joint Typhoon Warning Center and the Japan Meteorological Agency pushed different wind radii and risk zones, each spread by hundreds of kilometers. With Doppler feeds down and coastal gauges silent, no agency could claim no certainty. In a late-night conference, the Incident Command System ordered resources and rescue teams to be staged according to the widest possible forecast. Trucks and helicopters diverted mid-route, shelters prepped for towns that might not even be struck. No one could say if the danger was exaggerated or underestimated. On the ground, every decision carried the weight of lives, hinging on data that would not converge. The gamble was real, and the clock kept ticking. Right now, ocean temperatures in the western Pacific keep climbing, fueling storms scientists can't predict and systems can't always withstand. As nature redraws its boundaries, the future of coastal nations hangs in the balance. The next storm isn't just a forecast, it's a test we can't afford to fail.